UV, yeah. I think we're back in the same watch page. Maybe. Because I'm live. We're back? Something strange happened. Stream health. Yes, it's optimal stuff. YouTube. Just make sure this is actually working. I don't know if it actually kept the same video page. That would be nice if it didn't mess up and cut the video in half. You on watch page. Let me just check that real quick. Might have restarted. That's kind of annoying. Yeah, that's sad. It cut the video up in half. Stupid YouTube. Oh well. Let me just tweet this real quick so that other people can find it. Why does this happen? Yeah, last time it went on for 5 hours and it was fine. So anyway, seems like we're back. Kind of sad. So what I was saying is that at 44.1 kilohertz, this stream is there. Chat is disabled. Because some people did send chat messages. So does the chat work? Can people send stuff to the chat? One says the chat doesn't work. I think the chat should work, but hello, chat, testing chat 1 2 3. Yeah, it works. Okay. Okay, good. Anyway, so back to what we were doing. What I was saying, I think when it got cut off is that at 44.1 kilohertz, every so often there will be a packet, like every 10 milliseconds there will be a packet with an extra sample because it's 44.1, right? So there's a bit of jitter there. Anyway, what I just was testing is that at 48 kilohertz, or at least when the Audacity is set to 48 kilohertz, it's still saying 44.1. So the device probably only supports a fixed sample rate of 44.1, and that makes sense because I remember when I was testing different Pioneer DJ controller that did use USB audio, standard USB audio output. It also was fixed at 44.1. It didn't support any other sample rates, so it's probably a single sample rate. Anyway, so the other thing I want to find out, and I'm going to see if I can do this without losing any data, is whether there's any interesting stuff going on when we start streaming. So what I'm going to do is go back to 44.1 just in case, and then plug it back in just to make sure everything's clean, and actually send this to PV. So there's 1 megabyte per second of junk there, and then start playing, stop playing, and hopefully somewhere in there we got the data that we want. This might be reading from the buffer still, but that should be enough. So if I grep data 0 on this, yeah, we definitely got some data there. So now we can look at the stuff. Yeah, here we go. So this is the actual interesting data, ignoring the NACs, right? Data 0, data 1. So in this case, we have a lot of junk on 4.7. That was the interrupt endpoint. and then we have audio data, right? So we can see that it starts streaming there. And before that, this is what I'm interested in, is whether we have some control messages that get sent before the audio streaming starts. And it seems we do. So 4.0 is our control endpoint, which is used for configuring USB devices and basically like sending commands to them effectively, right? Your bulk asynchronous or interrupt endpoints are used for sending data. They might be commands in the context of some particular devices, but the endpoint 0 and setup transaction types, which are a separate type, are used for specifically for configuring USB devices. So in this case, we are going to look at also one extra. Yeah, here we go. What about A5? Yeah, so it's gonna have some extra stuff. Let's see if I can add some extra context to this. As you can tell, the OpenVISTA like internal output format is very raw. It does support some other stuff. It does support some other output formats, and I think someone added a patch recently to use a nicer USB analyzer. But it might be more educational to like look at the sort of raw packets on the bus like this instead of all the nice, neatly parsed output that you can get with some graphical tools. So in this case, we look at the USB specification. When we have a setup packet, which is a command for the device, this is actually a fixed format. It's not just any data you can send. So if you go here, the protocol layer, packet formats, maybe not there. The spec also isn't particularly great. Maybe it's a device framework. Device requests. Yeah, here we go. This one. So what we have is setup data, which is these 8 bytes of data, right? Which are these 8 bytes. And as I said, the last 2 bytes are the checksum. So we have a request type of 1, which is a bitmap. And in this case, it means the recipient is the interface. So this is data being sent to the interface. It's standard data, and it's host to device. And then we have B, which is the request, and it means something. It's being sent to the interface though, so it means that it's not a standard USB. It's not a standard USB request that will be in the USB 2.0 specification because it's not sent to the device; it's sent to the interface. So it will be in whatever the interface specification is. Then the value is and the index are basically information, like the actual arguments for the request, so to speak. And then you might get extra data, and that will be controlled by the length. So in this case, when it's being sent to the interface, the index field identifies the interface or the endpoint. So in this case, the index is this one, and that means we're sending stuff to interface 0. And if we go back, interface 0 is this vendor-specific one. So we're sending data to the vendor-specific interface, and it's request number B, value 1, and no extra data. So this could mean anything because it's vendor specific, right? But it actually claims to be standard though, even though it's a vendor specific interface. So that makes me wonder if this is actually a USB audio standard request, even though it's in a vendor specific interface. So let's see if I can get my audio class specification. I don't know if this is audio 2.0 or 1.0, but let's look at audio 1.0 first, because there's 2 versions of the audio standard. And there's no table of contents on this PDF, just to make everything more annoying. You can tell they're using Word for this. High quality standards writing here. So let's see. Audio interface class, so class and protocol, descriptors, requests, standard request, class specific requests, page 65. Hopefully that works. Yeah. Might be audio streaming. That would make sense. Yeah. Get request. Audio control request. So this says VM request type should be that with a 1 in that bit, which is class, not standard, but I wonder what's going on with that. But the interesting thing will be the B request. Where's the table of the B request values that I want? Okay. So, come on, where do they define this? It might even be in a separate PDF because USB is horribly annoying like that. It's some example, but that's not what I want. Come on. Hold on. Let's see if there's anything in here. So there's a basic audio device. Kernel types. Adopters agreement. Nah, these are all the types. It should be in here somewhere. Is the table of contents useful for this at all? Did I mention USB sucks and the documentation sucks even more? There we go, requests, page 129. Oh, set interface. Okay, so it's just a set interface. That makes sense. So it's actually just changing the interface type then. That should be standard. Let's see if that matches what we see here. Yeah, so 0 bandwidth and normalized synchronous operation. So in this case, we have, that makes sense. Request type 1, B. It's enabling, it's switching to the alternate setting for the for that actually reserves bandwidth on the bus, right? And the interface number of one of the audio streaming interfaces. The index is 0 because the interface is actually 0. This is because I think it assumes like the order is different, right? In a normal USB audio device, the 0 would be the control one, and then would have 1 or 2. But in this case, there's only an audio streaming interface, even though it's proprietary. So it's actually interface number 0 and no data. So this actually should be a standard USB request, which then should actually be mentioned in the USB 2.0 spec. Oh yeah, set interface. It should be this one then. Yeah. That makes sense. Alternate setting, interface 0. I forgot that the that some stuff is sent to the interface even in the standard USB request list. So that's fine. And then it returns with 0, which is just an ACK basically. And then it actually has the result data, I guess. No, that's 4.7. Sorry. So yeah, it just returns the 0, which is the status basically. Then we have a second request, which is 2201 blah blah blah. So if we look at BM request type, we go back here. 22 is recipient interface again. Is it? Hold on. No, the recipient endpoint. Sorry. And the other two should be class. So this is a class request, it claims to be. And it's request number 1. And in this case, the recipient is the endpoint. What do you do? So the index should be the endpoint number. In this case, the endpoint number should be 82, which makes sense. That's one of these, hopefully. Yep, the in endpoint. So it's sending a request to the in endpoint, a class request. And hopefully that actually is standard. So let's see. We had 2201. If we're lucky, it'll be in here somewhere, or not. This is an example, yeah, but that's not what I want. This is just a stupid example. Hold on. Yeah, it's just an example. Here we go. Requests should be there then. B5 or not. Where do they define these damn values? I hate these guys so much. Well, 22 is that anyway, recipient endpoint, but come on. Who writes these docs? Is there a table of this somewhere? not class code, request codes 101. Yeah, okay, here we go. So endpoint 82, request 1, set cur. So that's a set cur request to endpoint 2, and that was the index, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, the value, so that's the value index length. So the length is 3, which means it's going to get sent in separate data. So, oh, that looks like a sample rate. I bet this is setting the sample rate or something like that. That's AC44. Yep. So this is setting the sample rate, and it's probably a totally standard request then in this case. We'll set current on. It's going to be some kind of 0001. Is this 100? Yeah, it's 100. I seem to recall that this used some kind of top byte, bottom byte thing for the value. I do not work as an audio backend developer. Oh yeah, hide the Windows screen. That's a good idea. We're not using that anymore. But that works. Let's see what's going on here. So, see, they don't even have a table of contents. It makes this so annoying. 65. Value. See the following paragraphs. Okay. The value is qualified by the index field. The layout changes. Yeah. Control selector and the high byte. So in this case, the high byte is 1 and the low byte is 0. So the control selector. Yep. Let's see if that shows up somewhere. Actually, can I just bookmark some of these things? I never use PDF bookmarks because usually they have same talks, but this one doesn't. So bookmark this page or something. I don't even know what the bookmark button is. There you go, Control B. Control selector codes 102. Let's bookmark that. Feature unit. So we don't actually know the. Well, this should be an endpoint, right? So endpoint control selector. So there we go. Sample and frequency control. That makes sense. So we got sampling frequency control and index 0 because there's only 1. So we go to sampling frequency control. Hopefully this shows up somewhere. Yep. It's a 3-byte sample frequency expressed in hertz. So that's setting the sample frequency. And in this case, it sent the data. It got a NAC, which means the device is not ready to accept the data again. So it resent it because this is sort of a flow-controlled protocol, right? So it sends the request, the device accepts it. Then the device isn't quite ready to receive the data yet, but after that it is. And then finally it replies saying everything is okay. That's, again, the HID, which we don't care about. And then finally we have audio data being sent to the out endpoint, and again, and again, and again, and again. And hopefully at some point it'll come into the in endpoint too. It's not reading from in yet, but eventually it does. 4.2, yeah. So after a while it starts receiving. So this tells me that there shouldn't really be anything terribly interesting to add support for this. Basically, it's using standard USB audio requests. It just doesn't claim to be a actual USB standard audio device. So with that in mind, let's see what Linux is doing. So hopefully we don't need Windows anymore. So what I'm going to do first is reboot this. Update and restart. Oh, come on, Windows. Well, okay, we can let it do that. Who guessed this was going to happen? Fuck's sake. Yeah, Jastar says none of us here understand the mess USB is. I'm just going to go back to what Quark's tweet here. Yeah. Seriously, USB is one of the most horrible specifications I've ever seen. The whole thing, just like the core spec, the different standard class specs, it's just bad. It's over-engineered. It's very difficult to implement properly. It's almost impossible to implement without actually having a bunch of vulnerabilities. Yeah, no, it's bad. So, yeah. Go back to HDMI. Hopefully that works. So actually, what I'm going to do here is I don't even need that HDMI yet because I can SSH in. So because we're going to be writing kernel code, that's also a good idea to use a different machine than the streaming machine for this. So I should be able to SSH in to this machine, and I already have a Linux kernel in here that I just cloned straight off of Linus Torvalds' current Git master. So this should be very recent. So since we're going to be writing a patch, yeah, the latest commit is actually from Torvalds himself, April 25th. That's actually kind of old, but maybe he hasn't pushed recently. Yeah. Non-compliance of domain. Yeah, it's definitely a non-compliance of domain for my local LAN, but you know what? I don't care. So yeah, what we have here is a git clone of the current Git master Linux. And by the way, in case you're wondering, it's usually totally fine to use Git master kernels for experiments. Like, they generally tend to be reasonably stable in the sense that they're not just going to explode and not work for most people. I even ran a server, a semi-production server once on a Git master kernel because I needed a feature that had been merged like days earlier. So it should be fine for experiments. So right now, this is running some Arch Linux kernel. I did just compile this. I spent the first 30 minutes of the stream compiling it actually behind the scenes. So hopefully this won't actually do anything if I just type make, other than like scan everything. Because this is a dual-core hyper-thread machine, so it takes a while to compile the kernel. In fact, this is using a config derived off of the Arch Linux one, so it has like a lot of drivers that we don't need. But hopefully this is fine. Yeah, it's not actually doing anything, which means it's just scanning through all the files and realizing they're all already built. So let's let it do that. Actually, since it's mostly a disk cache thing, this is parallelizing should actually help. Just making sure it's actually finished. And what we're going to do is install this fresh kernel and then start messing with the USB audio device. And since once we're running the kernel that we have the source tree for, we can modify the driver, update the module, unload it, and load it back in without rebooting. And as long as we don't crash anything, we should be able to develop on the fly, so to speak. Yeah, 2.6, the old repo used to be called Linux 2.6 stable. It was eventually renamed. But basically, once Linux became 3.0, for a long time, the repo was still called 2.6. So my local clone is still called Linux 2.6 stable. It's not 2.6, it's like 5 point something now. It's just that when the whole Git thing started, the repo was called 2.6 basically, and it just stuck. I think upstream in kernel.org did eventually get renamed to just Linux or Linux stable. Yeah. It's just that I made this clone when it was still called Linux 2.6 stable, and I haven't bothered to rename it. It's just a directory name. Definitely not 2.6. It should be like newer than 509. 4,000 modules, yeah, because this is like a super generic kernel with way too much junk. So let's do make install. I type my password in right. Why is it trying to Lilo? Well, I don't care about Lilo. I wasn't expecting it to try to do that, though. That's a surprisingly slow module install. Actually, can I do this? Yeah, that's faster, somewhat. Yeah, we're compiling like, well, we've compiled like DVB, video capture stuff, a whole bunch of drivers that we don't need for anything, but this is a kind of a generic kernel. Usually on most of my machines that run Gentoo Linux, I run my own kernels with just about the hardware that I expect I will ever need. But this is an Arch Linux machine, and I figured I might as well use their default kernel config as a base because I didn't want to forget something important, so just in case. Should be almost done. Interestingly, the sound drivers on Linux are in the top-level sound directory, even though everything else is under drivers. That's semi-historical because ALSA used to be a separate tree, and so there's this kind of weird thing where sound is like a super special top-level thing in Linux, while everything else is literally under drivers. You know, all the other driver classes. So yeah. Hopefully this will work. Did it actually install? No. April 27? Oh, it is VM Linux. Wait, why didn't it find that? Well, whatever. Let me just copy it. Let's see if that works. We only really need the. What is it scanning? Thing is, this is Arch, and Arch usually doesn't store multiple kernels like one like a Z image or something. So let me just see what I do it on. It's called on my local host. Maybe VM Linux, yeah. Oh, there you go. That it found it there. Yeah, that works. So this is the Arch Linux one, and this is the. Actually, did I just overwrite the other one? I might have. VM Linux git testing. I'm not. I think it's actually yeah. Let me just reinstall my Arch Linux kernel to make sure I didn't like lose everything. Yeah. I'm not actually sure how it. Oh, I know what happened. I think it's because I used the Arch Linux config as a default, and that probably sets the build flag to like not include the version number, and so that probably made it logically made it do the same thing that the Arch Linux kernel does, which is that it doesn't have the version number in the image name, and therefore it overrode it with the same one. That makes sense. I could change that, but I'm scared of it totally fucking up and like rebuilding the whole kernel, so I'm not going to do that. But actually, yeah, like local versions, something in here is probably related. But anyway, no, it is actually VM Linux. VM Linux is the one that we have apparently, so we don't need that. That should be fine then. Let's make sure this doesn't break. Arch Linux, Linux git testing, Arch Linux with the regular one. That looks fine. Okay. So let's reboot that and switch to that. Advanced options, git testing. Ooh, lovely kernel panic. That's always great when that happens. Enable to mount root file system. Did I not build in some initramfs thing? Let me just restart. I might have turned off too much stuff. Oh yeah, good point. I'm going to run into issues with the initramfs. Does it copy the initramfs from the other stuff? Yeah, that's going to be kind of annoying, isn't it? Well, let's see what happens. I actually don't know how this works on Arch Linux. Like, if you want to build an initramfs for another kernel, how it's supposed to work. I can unlock that thing. Let me just Google that real quick. I've never actually run my own kernel on Arch Linux before, so let's see how that goes. Gen initramfs, is it, or? Password, how does it work? Let me go back to my local. Making it initramfs? Making it CPI, is that what it is? Yeah, that makes sense. I use Gentoo for my main machine, but not for all my machines. Most of them, though. Customize manual. There we go, something like that. Okay, so that's what I want. I think that's what I want. Yep, that sounds about right. Just make sure this is actually sane. This is the standard CPIO stuff, so that should be totally built in. I think this will work. Let's try that again. This is why I hate systemd. Why is a stop job running for a session? Like, what? Literally just booted the thing. And of course, I can't SSH anymore. Hard power off. I trust my file systems. I'm not gonna wait for that. Let's see if that works. That looks a bit better now. Something Arch. Yep. Yep, that looks good. And we're in. Cool. We don't really need the HDMI though, so go back to SSH. Yeah, someone says, I wish you could just press Control-C in the stupid stop job thing. Yeah, me too. And because systemd is everything parallel, you know, by the time it gets hung on everything, on something like that, it's already killed SSH, so you can't even SSH in and fix it. It's so stupidly annoying. But yeah, anyway, so that's fine. So let me open a root shell there for messing with modules, and another shell here for something like that. For the driver stuff. So sound. So at this point, I'm going to cheat a little bit and look at what AirDate did here for the Pioneer. So basically, what we have is that this is not the only USB audio device with some horrible vendor-specific stuff that Linux supports. So there's this USB Quirks table file, and that has a bunch of devices like this that just have, for some reason, dumb fixed settings. So I'm going to SSHFS mount this and use a graphical editor, because even though I am okay with Vim, when I'm writing code, I prefer something more graphical. Software Linux. Sound USB Quirks table. So there's a lot. There's like 3,400 lines of this junk. It's pretty sad. I wonder if there's any Pioneer stuff. No, doesn't look like it. So what we have here, this get added at the end of the file? Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Let's have this fixed endpoint type. See if I have an example of that. That's over here. Yeah. Probably we can basically copy this one and do the same thing with it. So we have a USB device that is 2B73E. Vendor name. Does this matter, actually? I'm not sure if it does. It might. Might as well add it. More instructive that way, I think. They all seem, not all of them have it, so. But might as well add it just in case. So it's definitely, in the interface, it's definitely a composite device. We don't have a mixer. What we do have are fixed endpoints. Oh, the STFU script? That's literally all it is. It's just redirecting standard input and output. Very simple. I picked that up from someone a very long time ago. So that makes sense. It's 24-bit signed, hopefully signed data. It looked signed because the null samples on the other two channels rolled 0, so that would be silence. 3 big NTN, that makes sense. Channels is definitely 4. Interface 0, alt setting 1, alt setting index 1, and this is the output. 44100 for both of those. Number rate's 1, max packet size. I'm not sure what's going on there, actually, but I'm not sure if that's actually the max packet size that's specified in the descriptor. It's more likely it's the actual max packet size that is required, and in that case, it would be the 45, because it's 44.1 times 3 times 4 channels should be 540. 21C. I think that makes sense. Not entirely sure though. Guess it might be half of that. It might be half of that because it's 2 packets, right? So maybe it's 1 OE. Well, we're gonna go for that for now anyway. 44100, 44100. VB. The microphone data we haven't really looked at, but let's see if the byte count makes sense. It looks like half of the other one, so that's what it is. Nope. It's a huge font I have there. 39. Not sure about that. Well, it's twice, right? So no, that's not right. Yeah, okay, that makes more sense. So 132, it would be 6 bytes, 22 times 4, 44. Yeah, so it's every, yep. So it should be 23 times 6 should be the max for that one, 138, I think. So interface number 0, fixed endpoint for V, channels 4, interface 0, blah, 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 endpoint. So let's look at the endpoints now. We have endpoint 1 for the output. And endpoint 82 for the input. That's 2 channels. Isochronous, sync, async, that makes sense. 1 rate, rate table, and the terminator. So just see if we're doing the same thing here. I think so. So this sets more attributes. Endpoint usage, implicit feedback, sync, async, transfer isochronous. I'm not sure if we need the implicit feedback stuff, but I guess I'm not sure actually. That was one of the issues that this guy had with this patch here. So just out of curiosity, I'm going to try it with this config, which is pretty simple. So if we make now why is it compiling trace? Basically, I just want to see what module it tries to build. It should be under sound. Yeah, sound USB card, sound USB audio. That's what I expected. That's the module that we need to worry about. Software unit. So as long as only that module changes, it should be able to just load that. Why is it recompiling NVMe junk? Okay, hold on. I think that's what it should be called. It's been a while since I've built it. Whoa. Okay, let me just do a regular make first. Hopefully this won't build like a million things. Do I have a Xeon workstation? No. I do have a Threadripper compile box though, and if this breaks and actually tries to recompile everything, I will move the source tree there because I am not spending 40 minutes on the stream recompiling this kernel on this tiny little laptop. But if this does work, then I hopefully don't have to do that. Make life a little bit easier. Like if it's only doing a few drivers like this, hopefully it won't be too bad. I'm not actually sure what causes these things to just like get rebuilds triggered when I change something completely unrelated. Usually this doesn't happen, but usually my kernels don't have this much junk in them, so who knows. Oh yeah, it's fine, it's fine, it's finished. I got the VM Linux. Let me just Google real quick how to but usually I think it's just like when mod post doesn't complete, like it complains about all those missing symbols. But there might be a magic incantation from the makefile to do that. Not quite in my head. Yep, we looked at the USB protocol already. Basically this file here, while that builds. So the conclusion is that it's a standard USB audio device just without any descriptors. So it should just work with the standard USB audio driver as long as we add a quirk that tells the kernel that, you know, this is really effectively USB audio standard, even though it doesn't claim to be that. Oh, what is it doing now? Building modules. Oh, it's doing all the mods. Well, at least this is fast-ish. I wonder why that happens. Thankfully, it's not actually compiling code now. It's just like metadata, so this won't take too long. But it's kind of annoying. Yeah, you can do subdirs. That makes sense, I think. Well, could be worse. I can live with all the mods getting recompiled. And this gives you a good idea of just how much hardware is supported by the Linux kernel. Like, that's what, like several dozen LED drivers. You know, another several dozen digital video broadcasting front ends for like satellite and TV and that kind of stuff. Bunch of I2C stuff. Like more media, radios. Yep, 2 million modules later. If this were actually combining the code, I would have given up, but it's just the metadata. I really don't know what triggered this. Like, I literally just compiled this earlier before rebooting, so unless it's just because of the running kernel version change, it doesn't really make a lot of sense. I'm not sure why it's just randomly rebuilding all the mods, but yeah. MFD. It's going in alphabetical order. While it's doing that, I'm going to get some water because I'm pretty thirsty. NFC support. PCI. From junk. Power supplies. A lot of things that will never even be useful on a PC, right? But this is what generic kernels have. Like regulators, come on. Like PCs don't really have like cell phone regulators in them. Yeah, it has a MIDI interface, and that works fine. The MIDI stuff is completely USB audio standard. So I don't know why the audio part is not standard while the MIDI part is, but you know, if well, yeah, like MIDI stuff totally works just fine. Play with all the sliders and get all the data out. It's just that there's no audio interface that is standard, even though the MIDI one is. I have no idea why. Almost there. Get to the V's. But this looks like it's going to be a 2-hour stream by the looks of it. We're at 1 hour and a half in. Not as bad as last one. Networking. Come on, you can do it. I've been meaning to set up a build box for like standard kernels for my Gen 2 machines. Right now I do them individually, but I already have a build box for packages, so it'd be nice to do that. Yeah, that was only like 5 or 6 hours. So last time I didn't have a cold, which I do now. You may have noticed my voice is a bit crappy. And we're finally at sound, which should be the last driver part, and after that we might have some kernel things. Do I do this at my day job? Kind of. Usually Linux drivers are not my day job, but I have debugged Linux issues in the kernel as my day job. But most of the time what I do is like systems engineering type of stuff and security, like you know, clustering and virtual machines and storage and that kind of stuff. Because I used to work at Google, not anymore, but I still do that kind of thing. All right, let's see. That's built. Let me make sure that I can do that. Sound. Sound USB. Oh, well, whatever. That's fine by me. What now? Come on. Oh, the version magic is different. Oh, because this became dirty. That's why. Because I edited a single file. When you edit a single file, the version magic changes. That's why everything got rebuilt. Okay, so then I'm just gonna make sure. Yeah, because this is using the Git Automagic stuff. That explains that. All the versions changed. Well, that's okay. I'm just gonna run a make to make sure that nothing changed, and I can reinstall this kernel and reboot, and it will have the right magic. You can probably force load the module. Yeah, should be fine. But although that's a setting though. Oh, it does work. Okay, because you can actually disable that in the kernel config, and I'm going to show how it's set for Linux. Okay, that worked. That showed up. That's good. Let's see what the message says. Invalid sync pike. Okay, so this is complaining. This is the issue that we have. We had that guy had. Display background EP82 be synced to 00. So it's this issue in the patch. On USB PCM. So actually, I'm curious about that implicit FP. It's not actually set for any of them. So yeah, the issue here is this thing I mentioned earlier, where when you're sending data to the device, the kernel needs to know what the clock rate of the device is. And in this case, because there's no explicit clocking mechanism and it's not synchronized to USB, the only way it can know that is by using the received data from the audio capture pipe to synchronize the transmit data for the audio playback pipe. Not from there. So this one is an audio USB PCN.C. And there we go, invalid sync pipe. So the thing is, I'm not sure if Linux even uses this. It's possible it doesn't. Yeah, I think it doesn't even, well, it calls get endpoint there for the error. And it checks that. So let me see if I can understand exactly what this is doing. Because this bsync address is actually should be defined here. Yeah. So the serif no synchronization pipe is used, which is the case here. But I don't know if this is supposed to be like the in endpoint for the out endpoint if a sync pipe is used or not. So in this case, let's see what this is doing. Set sync endpoint, right? Set format, set interface, yeah. Data input is whatever, and then it calls set sync endpoint. Sync EP implicit FP quirk. That sounds like what we need, actually. Yeah, this is where that should go then, because that overrides all the junk in the previous one. So instead of doing what happened here, where it was like a one-off thing on that function, I think this is what we want. Yeah, endpoint set by the quirk. That's what we want to do. This should go in here. So this just queries a bunch of USB IDs, and that's not the case. Attribute is sync async, which is the case, I think. We said, yeah, sync async. Class is vendor spec. Protocol is, well, this is some Roland thing, so we don't care about that. Basically, it's just going to go in here as one more entry. That makes sense. More sense than hacking in a one-off into the other function. 2b73, and we had E. That. And in this case, yeah. Consumers are always playback EPs, so these are the one we need is AT. Oh, I lost my, oh, whatever. It was this one. Input one was 82 should be it. If num 0. That looks about right. That's a sync endpoint, type data. Yep. RM mod. Why is it in use? Just pulse audio, probably. Or not. Come on. Okay. Right. What's using that? Come on. What is using that? Oh, maybe it's actually possible that it messed up because it didn't initialize properly. That would suck if that happened. Yeah, but force unloading modules is a great way to crash your system sometimes. Well, hold on. Yeah, I have some DNS issue locally. Hello. I just had some kind of DNS problem today. Like my DNS is just weird. My local network DNS. Oh, come on. It'll work if I try it a couple times. Yeah. Hey, Pulse Audio. How about I get rid of you somehow? So stop. This is like a system control thing. Hold on, let's do this. I think I can set it to nothing. That's fine then. That should be the local one. Yeah, okay. It was Pulse Audio. See, that could have crashed really badly if I forced unloaded it. What I did, by the way, is I went to PA view control and this stupid thing. Like it doesn't show up anymore, but I set it to totally disabled in here. So yeah, pay suspender is another way, but I'm not even sure if that works properly for, like, it might still keep the, because I did a suspend earlier and it didn't work, so I think the suspender might stop the PCM endpoints but not the control ones or something dumb like that. So if you actually disable it entirely, it definitely stops using everything and lets me unload the module. So let's make and insmod that. Well, it showed up. Unable to change format on EP82, already in use. That might be okay. Let's see. Get rid of my music here. Well, there's something there. We're getting output, at least. But I'm not sure if that's just noise. I'm not sure if that's actually what's some glitchy stuff or if it's actually... It's doing something, yeah, for sure. There's definitely something going on there. There's some noise from... actually, hold on, let me do something real quick. I'm going to get something to de-ground loop this. Definitely some... There's definitely a bit of a ground loop noise in my setup here, and that's going to make it more confusing because it's, you know, I won't know if I'm listening to noise or if I'm just hearing the ground loop. So a little isolation thing here. That's better. So there's no noise now, and if I play back, yeah. So now I'm getting, I don't know if you can hear that. You can hear that, right? So there's definitely noise there, but if I play a WAV file, it's broken, right? So that sounds like my data format is wrong. A bit of noise out of it, and also the volume is really low, which makes me think I got the endianness wrong. So let's look back here. Oh, B, yeah, because this is little endian. That's the problem. That's my stupid mistake.
Front, left, front.
There we go.
Right, front, left.
That works.
Front, right, front, left, front, right, front, left.
Yep,
front,
that sounds right.
right.
I think I've got my left and right correct. Yep. Oh, that glitched the USB somehow. Just get disconnected or what? I think something works.
Front,
Yeah,
left.
excellent.
Front,
that works.
Right.
Now the bigger question is, does
Front,
4-channel
left,
mode work? And you're gonna
front,
not gonna hear this,
right.
but rear right, rear left. So front left and front
Front,
right work.
Left.
And if
front,
I plug in my
right.
headphones here, yep, rear left,
Front,
rear right.
Left. Front, right.
Ah, there we go. The headphones
Front,
volume is
left,
actually
Front,
hardware
right.
mixer, it seems.
Front,
Yep.
left.
And the master, I might be killing you right now if I.
Left.
Yeah, that is a mixer.
Front,
Okay.
Right. Front,
Excellent.
left, front, right.
So you can't hear the headphones, but let me
Front,
show you this
left,
this way.
front, right.
Rear.
I don't know if you heard
left.
that.
Front, left.
So yeah, no,
front,
actually, if you mean
right.
if you mean out of sync with the image, that's
Front.
normal. Speaker test does not attempt to like it does not attempt to real time. It buffers a ton of audio. It's normal for speaker test to be out of sync with what is actually being played. So that's totally fine. Because it just uses a giant buffer. It probably shows it here. Like, yeah, using max buffer size of 95. Is that samples or I have no idea, but yeah. Like that's fine. If that's like 2 seconds, right? If that's samples, so yeah, that's totally fine. Excellent. So that works. Let's see about audio capture though. Let me open up. Audacity should be fine for this, because we can get a little visual view. Do I have Audacity here? I don't. Just install that real quick. It's so much faster than Windows. Elsa. DJRB recording. That looks good. And now the question is, oh, actually, I can hear the microphone input now, which is interesting. Like, I can hear the noise just by turning it up. So I wonder if that gets, I guess this passed through the hardware then directly. And if I plug something in there, just make some noise. I have some cable I can use. Random thing. Hold on, let me see if I can find something to plug in a microphone into that. This should work. Microphone, dynamic microphone, and the cable. I don't need these headphones actually. I'm using these. So if I plug that in, yeah, I can hear myself. And so that's looping back in software, I believe, but it's not capturing. So that's interesting. That's broken somehow. It's nice that it's capturing though. I guess it does monitor in hardware somehow, because there's no like microphone input control on the mixer other than this one preamp thing, right? You're probably hearing me doubled now. So let me turn that down. But now the question is, are we getting data? So I can use the OpenVisual again now that we're streaming, just to see if we get anything interesting. Yeah, there's no data. It's getting in data, but it's not actually receiving any data. So maybe that's okay. I wouldn't be entirely surprised if it's not actually designed to capture the microphone input, if literally that's only routed to the output as a mix. Because we couldn't get input to work on Windows at all. So maybe it doesn't support input. Maybe the only purpose of this input endpoint is literally as a sink for the output. Like, this is the kind of really janky USB implementation that some vendors would make. So I think I'm reasonably happy just claiming that input is not supposed to work, and you're just going to get silence if you ever record it. And that the microphone only loops back to the output automatically as an analog path. So if that's the case, then we are basically done, aren't we? I should be able to upstream this, and I should be able to also talk with this guy and probably put this together into the same thing and do this instead of using this hack, do what I just did. So the final patch would basically look like this. We got a quirk for the sync endpoint, and honestly, if input is not supposed to work, if there's no data there, then we don't need this. So we can leave it in as an if 0, but leave a comment in here saying like, and my settings are wrong because this is kernel code, so I need to make sure this is using indentation with tabs. Green switch, yes, sorry about that. This is again an assumption. There could be a mixer here or some control I can use to turn this capture endpoint on, but since I couldn't get it to work on Windows, you know, oh, that definitely needs to be in there though. So if this works, might even fix those error messages that it was in use that I had earlier. So stop that. Just make sure that's clean. Ooh, that didn't like that. Yeah. Now that's gonna require massive, and that might die. Oh yeah, that's probably, this needs a reboot to fix. So this null pointer dereference and sound PC and do prepare. Okay. Maybe it does need the endpoint to exist in the list here, even if it's not actually used. Let's see where this goes. On the core PC and native. Oh, it just calls a substream. So it's like it has a substream, but it doesn't know about it. That's interesting. Hmm. Yeah, that's interesting. Like, can't I have a playback only endpoint? Also, I'm curious as to whether the microphone works now. Yeah, it does. So maybe the microphone is always active as an analog thing, regardless of what the driver is doing. That would make sense. Let's see where these are defined. See if I can find this somewhere. Because that thing got called from PCMIO control. Yeah, it's just fixed endpoint, but I think it would work. Maybe it just, if you have that sync endpoint thing, kind of weird though. Like, I'm not sure why. Not entirely sure why that went to null dref if this just doesn't exist as endpoint, right? If num0. And to just like what does it need 82 for other than the sync endpoint? Maybe it's just because of this. Maybe this just implicitly makes it show up as an audio device. Is any of the others that do this? Audio. $2031. Yeah, something like that. Yeah, it has playback and capture, right? Hmm. Yeah, I think it's almost everything is going to be, it's going to have capture anyway, right? So maybe it's just not intended to work. Well, let's leave it like this for now. and reboot and just make sure that everything works properly at least. This is kind of annoying though. I'm able to change format already in use. Wonder if I can fix that somehow. I've seen that error message before though with other USB devices though, so it might be semi expected. I really need to figure out what the DNS thing is. Yeah, this is not useful. Maybe some of these patches will have an idea as to how to fix that. Meanwhile, it built a bunch of junk again. Or is it just mod post? Might just be missing mod post. Oh, that's just the code. But that might be totally fine. It just means it's in use. Honestly, I'm pretty sure I've seen this message before with other USB devices, and it might be okay to just leave it as is. And like at the point of submission to the kernel guys, they might have better ideas as to how to deal with this, right? Like it's not necessarily worth agonizing over the perfect way of doing this. So, you can just make the patch in a way that looks reasonable, send it in, and the maintainers will give you their opinion as to whether something needs changing, right? So yeah, I might just do that. But let me just reboot one last time to make sure that this is functional exactly as built now. Come on, you can do it. That should work. And since my kernel is in a stupid state, do this the hard way. The brute force way. Git testing. Let's see if this works. And hello to get the encryption for some reason. Oh, something didn't work there. Oh, lib modules not found. Did I copy the kernel wrong? Yeah, that didn't work. Hold on. The dash dirty thing didn't quite do. I think I might have not built the kernel properly or something with the dirty change. Go back to the old kernel. Arch Linux 1. That's there. Wrap this up. Let me just finish the kernel thing. Linux. I think I just forgot the global make for the actual kernel image. Let's see if that works. It takes forever just to go through the entire kernel tree, just looking and making sure that everything is already built. Well, that's what happens when you work with kernel code, is you spend half the time just waiting for things to build. Honestly, I should have used a different kernel config that has less junk, because it normally doesn't take this long when I mess with kernels, but this was based on the basically everything enabled config. It's a lot nicer if you minimize your kernel builds when you're developing like this. It claims to be ready. Oh, it wasn't the. That's why I messed up. The name was wrong. The VM Linux get testing. Yeah, that should be fine now. Yep, that's fine now. Let it finish my post. All right, let's try that again. And at risk of getting a copyright strike, actually, if anyone has any ideas for free music that will not give me a copyright strike, now is your time to mention that. Because I'm going to try Mix, see if this actually works as a DJ controller now. I don't know if there's a good mapping for the DJRB. I might be able to find one, though. Let's see about that. Oh, I can probably just... YouTube Music Library is fine, right? Yeah, YouTube Audio Library, that thing. Let's see. So first of all, I have a DTJRB speaker test.
Front.
That
left,
works. Excellent.
Front.
So let's see. First of all, DJRB mix. Someone has made a mapping for this. Yep. Excellent. Basically, the MIDI input stuff, of course, is not the same for every controller. So the most popular open source DJ software is Mix with 3 X's. And the way it works is that you define MIDI mappings either in terms of basic controls, or more often there's actually a JavaScript file that does a bunch of interesting things, so that you can have more complicated mappings between the hardware and the mix stuff. This just I pasted it twice. So in theory, I can just copy those two .mix controllers. I think just copying them is fine. And oh, come on, really? You need a fine. What genre do we want? Well, it's a DJ, right? So we have to go for dance and electronic. Let's see what we have here. That's playing through my internal speakers right now. Mood. Right. Instrument. Synth. Does that work? Whatever. Good enough for a test, I think. Yeah, that's fine. Bovie and Palm Trees. Let's get 2 songs in there. Media, music. Let's go media. Put it in here. Bovie. And start mix. So this is going to show a bunch of crap because I have songs in here. You can figure, okay. This is just going, this is using a different DJ controller previously. So in theory, this should work. 44100. Master DJRB, channels 1, 2. Headphones DJRB, channels 4. Apply. And then under controllers, DJRB. Here we go. MIDI 1 and whatever. Oh, HID is useless. We know that. So load preset, DJRB. Excellent. Enabled. Apply. Okay. And I had a bunch of random things I was testing with, like Idle Master Music here, but hopefully I can not play any of those and get my thing media. My yeah, there we go. Let's see if this works. In theory, that didn't quite. The interface doesn't seem to work. That's a bit sad. Let me just restart mix because we did just change all the settings. Oh, control is an issue. Well, let's try that again. Oh, yeah, there's definitely a bug in that code. Pioneer DDJ can't find variable. Is there a stupid bug in this? Mix controllers DDJ RB. What is Pioneer DDJ RB? Maybe just the scripts were not loaded properly. Controllers the scripts. That should be loaded. Line 1 passing code. Pioneer DDJ. Oh, because it's not Pioneer DDJ. It's Pioneer DDJ RB. Oh, because there's a dash in there. That's not a thing. That's buggy. Has anyone ever tested this? Work in progress while I map. Okay, see, it's not even tested. That's great. Yeah. This might be a total failure, but do that for now. And controller DJRB. That looks a bit better now. Hey, that works. And it's playing through the output. Excellent. Okay, other stuff is broken, but at least the play button works. Jog wheel, whatever. Okay, so this controller mapping is total bullshit, but at least the play button works. Does Q work? Yeah, Q works. And hopefully the second deck works too. Yep. Yeah. Do the hotkeys work? No. Yeah. So obviously this MIDI mapping needs work, but hey, it works, and I can mix tracks and stuff. May not match BPM. So BPM changing works wrong. They have the LSB and MSB mapped wrong. I can tell because it's like glitching instead of doing the right thing. Okay, so that's a different project, but as I mentioned, I'm not a DJ either, so you don't want me doing this, but it works. And the audio output works. Let's see if the headphones work. That's playing through that side now. The mixer does not work, so let me use the software one. Turn that off. Play the left side. Switch my headphones over to this output. But that works. Yep. I've got headphones there. I've got that track on the headphone and the other track on the master. So, excellent. Done. That's the end of this. Could definitely needs a bit of work to actually use it as the DJ controller, but that's just JavaScript and looking at MIDI messages, which is a totally different thing and definitely doesn't involve any kernel coding. So, thank you for watching. I'll see if I can get this upstreamed, and hopefully it will make it to a kernel near you soon. Bye.